9,435 pounds, one owner, locally purchased and traded right from Haylett RV of Coldwater, Michigan down the street. Actually, what's interesting is the guy who was our consignment officer now at Haylett RV Brokers here used to be a salesman at Haylett RV just down the street, and he's the one that sold this to its only owner way back when. By all intents and purposes and views and all that stuff, it looks to be very well maintained. Now, given the age of the RV, it's silly to think it would be completely flawless and without blemish here or there, but I can see nothing significant, nothing scary. Frankly, it's in better shape than my car, which is younger than this thing. And, you know, as the age obviously indicates, this comes from a previous generation of fifth wheel RV, so there's some things different, like this is a one-slide living room, not a two-slide living room. Trucks back then just weren't quite capable of what trucks are now, and people camped different. You know, there were just different ideas, different wants, needs, desires, different expectations involved here. Overall, though, I mean, I don't think I could be much happier with the condition of it considering the age, and, you know, used quite a bit, but obviously not beat up. You know, we've got storage below our dining. This can fold down into a sleeper. Sofa similarly can fold into a sleeper. You see all the original owner's manuals and everything still in the handy little, you know, Jayco kind of organizer over there. All of our windows have day-night shades, and they do all open for airflow, which is excellent, including these really tall, kind of like toothpick-style windows on either side of the chairs. Now, these are definitely not the original chairs. Definitely not. Yeah, Charlie Babbitt. But it is nice. They're nicer, kind of like residential-style upgrade chairs. And if I'm eyeballing it right, it looks pretty obvious. You're going to need to just turn that recliner to close the slide, but no big deal. Now I can see a couple things, like it looks like this piece of little nail trim over it popped at one point, but the previous owners went through and glued it down. They might have over-glued it a little bit, but that's a good indicator to me that this RV received TLC if and when it was needed. It wasn't left to kind of rot, you know. They took care of it. Now, interestingly, when you do have just a one-slide living room, the kitchen ends up eating up the other half of the RV. And with this being a designer, you have so much of that honey oak cabinetry that I'm just a sucker for. Honey oak being the color pattern on the cabinetry, by the way. They are raised panel hardwood cabinet doors, but it is a lumber core cabinet style. So just to make that clear, but so much storage space up here, all those shelves. I mean, let me get all the way down here to the pantry, you know, above, beside, below, whatever, the refrigerator. Now that is a fridge you don't tend to see in the market today. That's a 10 cubic foot gas and electric fridge. In today's day and age, you tend to see 6 or 8s that are gas and electric like that, or you tend to see a 10 cubic foot 12 volt fridge. And obviously this one, kind of the predecessor to all of those things. I think what always gets me about the coloration in these older Jaycos is, like, I camped, you know, when I was a grandkid camping with my grandparents. They had several different RVs, but one of them, well, several of them actually were Jaycos. So that color pattern kind of takes me back to some really positive memories from my youth. And another thing is, like, you know, when you, the music that you listen to in high school, it will always be the best music, right? It doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter when you were in high school, but the music that was playing when you happened to be in high school, that's a king bed, by the way, that's the best music, right? And I think that's kind of what this is like. When I grew up and when I started in the RV industry, this is what, you know, a really good, classy, high-end RV looked like to me. And it just always kind of held through and rang true for me. Now, this is a classic split bath, obviously. You can see how we've got the, you know, almost a dedicated middle bathroom deck right here. Now, there's a privacy accordion kind of door on our left. Obviously, there's a actual main door right there that can close all this off. So if you do have a guest on the hide bed or the dinette or something like that, they're not going to interrupt you by any stretch. You'll be able to sleep on your own very nicely. It is a little bit older RV. They use different types of linoleum then, and in the Midwestern weather over time, you get a little bit of cold curling on a few points of lino here and there, but overall, it looks pretty darn minor. Everything looks pretty good. Now, something I missed when I went through this RV the first time, but I actually saw it just now when I was walking through. There has been a level of water exposure in this big laminated roof up here, right there. Now, if you listen, I don't know if that's translating to camera. This has a higher pitch sound than that. That's kind of another way to tell you that there's been some exposure in here and it's been dampened a little bit. However, looking at what I see on the roof, that does appear to be historic with the weather that we've had around here recently. If that was current, it would be a whole lot worse because we just got done having like some monsoon season rainstorms around southern Michigan. And I hope you appreciate the decency with which we conduct ourselves here, being willing to show you not just the good points of a used RV, but the little glitches and things, like something scuffed the skirt right here. It's a bummer, but it's not hurting anything, you know? Like I said, you got to remember, it's a pre-owned RV. It's been around for a few years, but overall, it's in pretty darn good shape. Now, we'll get up to the roof so you can see the area around that skylight yourselves when we're all said and done here, but we'll work our way around there first. The decals and whatnot, especially in the front here, they're a little faded, but overall, I don't see any significant flaking or anything in that. It just looks like generic sun exposure. So again, stood the test of time pretty darn well. And again, if you compare this to an automobile of this model year, pretty sure this is going to look a lot better than that car, commonly would. Now, this does have an enclosed, heated, kind of protected belly, which not a lot of things during this generation really had a significant package there, but the designer name was always kind of legendary for doing everything everybody else did and typically just a little more. Something I spotted back here is the previous owners also looked like they had a towing hitch added to the back of this. And that is something that quite a few RVs are just, they don't have the chassis and the structure and the strength to be able to support that. This one, obviously not a problem. They added a 4-way wiring harness. You can see the extension thing there. I don't know if they had like a little boat behind them or what they were towing, but they obviously did some. Now, this was made before the age of power awnings being on everything, but that is a big awning and the material looks great. So it leads me to believe, doing some camping CSI, camp scene investigating, that the awning fabric itself has probably been replaced at some point within, I'm shooting from the hip here, estimating last 5 years. And up here on the roof, like I said, they had gone through and recoated the roof. And holy cow, they just slacked it on. They did not put like if they needed like 1 or 2 buckets of roof coating, they bought 3 or 4, and they said, by God, we're going to use every ounce of it. We'll double coat it if we have to. I don't know what they did. But, I mean, they put a ton on here. And I'm walking all over this roof. Feels good. Feels pretty solid on me. Like I said, there had obviously been a level water exposure around the skylight. And what I suspect happened is when that occurred, that's when they just candy coated the entire roof of this thing. And you can see there's new seals around the skylight, and then they coated over top of that. So it's a bummer that it did have a little thing there, but obviously not really hurting the RV, and they took the steps they needed to ensure that wasn't going to happen anymore. Now, we're a little lower on inventory than normal here, but you know, that's one of the things about us down at Haylett RV Brokers is we get these things in, we sell them for people on consignment, we work close and fair, we represent them fairly, obviously, you know, being willing to share the good, the bad, the ugly with everything in between, and people seem to appreciate that. So, and actually back here, we have a big expansion project going on. We're about tripling the size of this facility just because it has become so popular. Now, I mentioned that we're selling this RV for somebody on consignment. If you're not familiar with what that means, basically think of us like a real estate broker and imagine this as a house. And then you basically already understand how this works. But the good news is whether you need hitching, pieces, parts, trades, finance, RV delivery, from economy to excitement and everything between, give us a call because we do it all at Haylett RV Brokers in Coldwater, Michigan. So take care, stay safe, have fun, and happy Haylett camping, everyone.